and Christine have just meant the world to me. I know I seem like I just love people and I do all that, but I would think I may be one of the biggest loners in Alcoholics Anonymous, even in sobriety. And Chris and Christine have just been everything as far as a support system through surgeries and these freaking health things that keep showing up, and deaths in my family and all kinds of things. And you just can't have anything better than a friend. We didn't know what friends were back when we were drinking. Friends were people you took advantage of. And we thought we were friends at the bar. You remember that? Oh, this is my dear friend. And he goes to the bathroom, we steal his money off the bar. But we don't feel bad because we know he'd do that to us. And that's what friends were all about. So I'm delighted to be here, and I also want to add my thanks to all the tapers in AA that go around to these various conventions. If you ever watch them setting up and operating and being there the whole time, and I know a lot of the speakers in the front here, they get to see them around the country. And they really are collecting tremendous AA history, because we can listen to Bill Wilson giving many, many different talks. I know at this little history meeting that we have, a brand new guy volunteered to be the one to do some research and come in with a little history project. And they talked for 10 or 12 minutes. And he came in and he had, what are these, iPods or what, these little portable things? And he said, what I brought tonight is Bill Wilson talking after Dr. Bob died. And this is a little excerpt from it. And he plays it right there in the meeting. And there was a couple of new people who were almost in tears. And after the meeting they said, I never thought I'd get to hear Bill Wilson's voice. They had no idea that it was available. And God, we can listen to Chuck, and I still listen a lot to Clint and some of the people we've lost, Scott Redmond. We really did, we were very close. And these are preserved. And I'm very grateful to the tapers in the AA for doing this and for making it available. I seem to be thanking people here tonight, and I guess this is long overdue. All throughout my sobriety, I've made fun of the state of California. And it started back in the 60s. When I got sober, number one, you didn't hold hands saying the Lord's Prayer. You didn't yell back at the speaker, "Hi, Joe." And you didn't read anything at the beginning of the meeting except the preamble. So the speaker got up and he went, well, here's the preamble, oh, and the Serenity Prayer, and the Serenity Prayer, and then, here's Joe. And it was 2.5 minutes, we were into the meeting. And then I'm at a meeting one night, and some guy next to me grabs my hand during the Lord's Prayer. And I said, what is this all about? And I saw other people, and they said, this is how they do it in California. And it started there, and it swept all the way. And so I'm going, all right, geez. Then I get up to talk one night, and somebody yells back, "Hi, Sandy!" And I'm going, "What's that?" And that's what they do out in California. We're starting to do that now. And then somebody came in reading chapter 5, and I'm looking at my watch, and I'm going, when the hell's the meeting going to start? They're reading all the steps and all this stuff. And then they're reading the long form of the traditions. So one time Clancy was coming to D.C. and we never pulled this off, but I wish we had. We were going to fake a meeting and bring him to it. And we were going to read things until he broke. We go through the normal thing, and it's also the custom at this group to read the chapter to the agnostic. So and just see how long it would take before he said, "What, you were going to read the whole meeting? I mean, what the hell's going on?" So, having done all that for all these years, I cannot tell you the contribution that California has made to Alcoholics Anonymous. I could start naming speakers and people out there that have influenced my life, starting with Chuck and Clancy. And Clint, just almost this whole front row. There's just been some remarkable people that have come out of that state. And I just want to thank all you guys that and gals that have contributed so much to AA. And I didn't mean any of the teasing that I was doing. I got sober on December 7th, 1964, up in Washington, D.C. And I'm one of those guys that just came to AA and decided to stay. As a matter of fact, I don't remember hearing slips. I didn't even know what the word meant. It seemed like almost everybody that came just stayed. And I guess I had about 3 months sobriety, and somebody said, "Hey, Fred out in the Vienna group slipped." And I remember going, "Really?" So later I had to ask, I said, "What's a slip?" He said he started drinking again. And I said, "Why?" And he said, "I don't know, he just started drinking again." So I went to my sponsor and I said, "What's this slip thing? You didn't tell me about that." And he said, "Well, you're not allowed to have one." And so I thought it was handed out when you came into AA. No. Yes, you can have one, and you can. So anytime I thought about taking a drink, I said, "Well, I just can't. I'm not eligible to have a slip." So I just got one white chip and stuck around. And if you're looking for a possible approach to sobriety, you might consider that one. Now, I'm not saying that this is a fact, but along came the treatment centers and started teaching about relapse prevention. And you put that in somebody's head. Wow, relapse could happen any second. I better be ready. And relapse became part of the sobriety. Well, watch out for relapse. They're all over the place. So I just remember there weren't many people doing that. We could have been lower bottom, I have no idea, but it just seemed like all the guys I got sober with just stuck around. I suppose AA up in D.C. was very similar to every place else. It was a lot smaller than it is today. I think the year before I came in, all the meetings in Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C., and Southern Maryland were on one mimeograph sheet. And I saved my directory meetings from 1965. And I'm telling you, it's really tiny. There's probably about 9 meetings a day in that whole area. So one of the things that did was you had to drive a bit to get to the meetings. So there was a meeting in the car, then there was a meeting, and then there was a meeting in the car coming home when you would talk to your sponsor and go, "What? Geez, that speaker was terrible, wasn't he?" And my sponsor would say, "Well, what makes you think that?" And I would explain whatever it was. And he'd go, "No, the guy's absolutely right. You're wrong. That was exactly right." And so I learned a lot about what I had heard. And that's a very important thing, to learn about what you heard. In order to understand what you heard, you have to ask someone else. Because what you heard just consists of your perspective on it. And after you run it by somebody else and hear their view on it, you go, well, maybe your view is slightly improved over my view. And that's called growth. It's how it's done. I was thinking of starting my story. One way to not get bored with your story is to start in different places. And I was thinking of starting my story in 1964, and by simply saying, well, there I was, it was 1964, I'm 33 years old, I'm a Marine Corps fighter pilot, I grew up in Connecticut, I went to a prep school that's 350 years old, I went to Yale University, I got married, I have 6 children, and I am presently attending a career school at Quantico, Virginia, to move up in the higher officer ranks of the United States Marine Corps. And I had a grand mal seizure and almost bit my tongue in half. And they carried me out on the stretcher, and I went up to the hospital, and I was there for 5 or 6 days, and I went into the delirium tremens, which terrified me. And they put me in a straitjacket, and they took me back into the nut ward, and I went through detoxing, and it was the most painful thing I can remember. And it seemed to me that 5 or 6 days went by, and I came to in a bed with sides on it, like a crib. And someone had wet the bed that I was in. And it stunk. And I was just so shaky. And I looked around, and there was 2 other guys in there, in cribs. And the door had no door handle on it, and it had a little window, and people would look in every so often. And finally a corpsman came in, and he gave us some cigarettes. And I think just 2 or 3 matches. And we all were chain smokers. And I remember lighting a cigarette, and I'm smoking, and the guy over there is smoking, but the guy over here is closer to me so that I could smoke until it was time for him to light a cigarette, and then he could light it off of mine. And then I'd have another cigarette ready because we had run out of matches. And then I could light his cigarette off of mine, knowing that when he finished, I could light mine off of his. But the guy over there just could watch us. And after a while of watching him watch us, I saw the look on his face, and I had the thought, there's a guy whose life is unmanageable over there, that guy. And I had found somebody worse off than me that helped explain that what I was going through wasn't that important. Now, I could say that that's when I discovered I was an alcoholic, by biting my tongue almost in half. And in a way, it was true. A lot of us, when we get to AA, is when we find out that we're an alcoholic. We don't really find out. We finally admit it to ourselves. And it's almost like you suddenly become an alcoholic. You just go, yeah, you're right. I am an alcoholic. Wow. And I've been one for 25 years. And I just discovered it today.